There's something strange about sad music, how a song can break your heart and somehow make you feel whole again. The melody aches, the lyrics sting, yet you keep pressing replay. Why does sadness sound beautiful? Think about it. When everything feels too heavy, when words fail and the world demands you smile through the weight, where do you turn? For some people, it's to a song that understands. A song that doesn't ask you to pretend. A song that meets you exactly where you are, in all your unpolished, unfiltered emotion. It's a paradox that doesn't quite make sense on the surface. We're supposed to seek happiness, chase joy, run from pain, and yet millions of us deliberately choose to sit with music that makes us cry. We cue up the songs that remind us of what we've lost, what we're still carrying, what we can't quite let go of. We don't do this because we're broken. We do it because something about that sadness feels honest, real, even comforting. Today, we're going to explore the psychology behind this beautiful contradiction. Why are some people so deeply drawn to melancholy music? What's happening in our minds and hearts when we press play on that song we know will undo us? And what does it say about who we are? Because this isn't just about music. It's about how we process emotion, how we seek truth, and how we find beauty in the places others fear to look. People often think those who listen to sad songs are depressed, lonely, or stuck in the past, that they're wallowing, that they can't move on, that they're choosing to be miserable. But that's not the full story, because sometimes sadness isn't what breaks us, it's what saves us. Let me explain. When someone is drawn to sad music, they're not necessarily seeking out pain. They're not masochists who enjoy suffering. What they're actually seeking is recognition, alignment, honesty. For many people, happy music feels dishonest. It feels like a performance, like wearing a mask at a party when your heart is somewhere else entirely. Upbeat songs can feel like they're shouting at you to feel something you don't, demanding energy you don't have, insisting on optimism you can't authentically access in that moment. Sad music doesn't demand anything. It simply says, I see you. I know. Me too. And in a world that constantly pushes us to be productive, positive, and put together, that kind of emotional honesty is rare. It's radical even. People drawn to melancholy aren't chasing pain, they're chasing truth. They're seeking emotional alignment in a landscape that often feels emotionally dishonest. They're tired of pretending, tired of forcing brightness, tired of the gap between what they feel and what they're expected to project. This isn't self-pity. It's not weakness. It's emotional integrity. When you listen to a sad song and feel that click of recognition, what you're experiencing is validation. You're hearing your internal world reflected back to you, and suddenly you don't feel so alone in it. The emotion that felt too big, too complicated, too much, it's there in the music. Someone else felt it too. Someone else found the words and the melody to contain it. And for many people, that recognition is more healing than any forced positivity could ever be. Because here's the thing, not everyone processes emotion the same way. Some people heal through distraction, through movement, through laughter and light, but others heal through acknowledgement, through sitting with what hurts, through giving their pain the space and attention it's been asking for. Sad music gives them permission to do that. It tells them their sadness matters, that it's not something to be rushed through or ashamed of, that feeling deeply isn't a flaw. It's part of being human. So, what's actually happening in our brains when we're drawn to sad music? It turns out there's fascinating science behind this. First, let's talk about emotional resonance. Psychologists call this emotional congruence, the phenomenon where we're drawn to stimuli that match our internal emotional state. When you're feeling melancholy and you hear a sad song, there's a kind of harmony that occurs. Your inner world and the outer stimulus align, and that alignment feels good. It feels right. This is why forcing yourself to listen to happy music when you're genuinely sad often backfires. The dissonance is jarring. It creates emotional friction rather than resolution. Your brain knows you're trying to override what you actually feel, and it resists. Sad music, on the other hand, meets you where you are. It validates your current state rather than fighting against it. And that validation activates something powerful in the brain. It helps us feel understood when words fail. Think about how often we struggle to articulate complex emotions. How do you explain the particular shade of loneliness you feel, the specific texture of grief, the quiet ache of nostalgia mixed with regret? You can't always, but a song can. And when it does, when that melody captures exactly what you couldn't say, something releases in you. Attention dissolves. You've been seen. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. Sad music provides what researchers call safe emotional processing. When you experience real-life sadness, a breakup, a loss, a disappointment, your nervous system responds with genuine distress. There's threat involved, consequences, uncertainty. Your body is flooded with stress hormones because the situation is real and it requires navigation. But when you listen to sad music, you get to experience those emotions in a controlled environment. The music activates empathy and memory. It pulls up feelings of grief and longing, but there's no real-world threat attached. You're safe. You can explore these emotions, sit with them, even intensify them. And then when the song ends, you can step back. It's a safe simulation for grief, a practice space for processing pain. This is why crying to a song can feel cathartic in a way that crying over your actual problems sometimes doesn't. The music gives you permission to let go without the complicated logistics of real-life emotional mess. And there's actual chemistry here too. Studies have shown that sad music releases prolactin, a hormone typically associated with lactation, but which also has a soothing, comforting effect on emotional distress. When you listen to sad music, your brain literally releases chemicals that help you feel consoled and cared for. You're chemically self-soothing through art. But there's also a dopamine component here. Even though the music is sad, the experience of aesthetic beauty still triggers reward pathways in the brain. You're experiencing emotional depth and artistic beauty simultaneously, and your brain finds that combination deeply satisfying. So you're getting soothed by prolactin while also getting rewarded by dopamine. No wonder it feels so compelling. Now, here's what's really interesting about people who are especially drawn to sad music. Research shows they often score higher in certain personality traits, particularly openness to experience and emotional intelligence. They tend to be more empathetic, more introspective, more sensitive to subtlety and nuance. They're not broken. They're tuned in. For these people, sadness isn't an enemy, it's a language, a kind of honesty the world forgot how to speak. They're drawn to emotional depth the way others are drawn to adventure or novelty. Their curiosity isn't just intellectual, it's emotional. They want to understand feeling, to explore it, to map its territories. And sad music gives them a way to do that. When life feels too loud, sad music whispers. It gives shape to feelings that would otherwise drown you. Let me paint you a picture of what this actually feels like. You've had a hard day, not necessarily a dramatic one, maybe nothing even bad happened in any objective sense, but you're tired, emotionally overextended, you've been performing all day, at work and conversations, on social media, even with people you love, you've been managing other people's emotions, maintaining a certain image, holding space for everyone else, and now you're finally alone. You put on a sad song, not because you want to feel worse, but because you need to feel real. The opening notes wash over you and something in your chest loosens. Finally, you can drop the mask. Finally, you can let your face match what's inside. The music doesn't ask you to explain yourself or justify your emotional state. It doesn't tell you to look on the bright side or count your blessings or remember that others have it worse. It just holds space for what you feel. This is the hidden comfort of melancholy. Sad music creates emotional companionship. It says, you're not the only one who feels this way. Even if the artist who wrote the song lived in a different country, a different decade, a different reality entirely, somehow they felt this too. And they translated it into sound, into poetry, into something you can hold on to. The melody acts like a mirror. You see yourself in it, your pain, yes, but also your depth, your capacity to feel, your emotional courage, because it takes courage to feel things fully. And sad music honors that courage. Here's another layer to this. Sad music transforms pain into something beautiful and controllable. In real life, grief is messy. It arrives without warning. It overstays its welcome. It doesn't follow a structure or progress in a linear way. You can't pause it or skip to the next track when it gets too intense. But with music, you can. You can stop the song when it gets too heavy, you can replay your favorite verse, you can control the volume, the tempo, the duration. You're engaging with deep emotion, but you're also in the driver's seat. Think of it like holding a storm inside a song, chaos, contained within rhythm. The feelings are real, the emotions are genuine, but they have boundaries now. A beginning, a middle, and end. 3 minutes and 47 seconds. That's manageable. That's survivable. And there's something else too, something almost spiritual about it. When you listen to sad music, you're witnessing the transformation of suffering into art. Someone took their pain, raw, jagged, unbearable, and they shaped it into something beautiful. They found melody in misery, harmony in heartbreak. And if they could do that with their pain, maybe you can too. Maybe your sadness isn't meaningless. Maybe it's material. Maybe it's the rough stone that, with time and attention and care, becomes sculpture. Sad music doesn't just give you permission to be sad. It gives you permission to find meaning in sadness, to see it as part of your story rather than a mistake in it. But there's a quiet danger in always finding comfort in sadness. A shadow side to this beautiful relationship with melancholy, because while sad music can be healing, grounding, validating, it can also become a cage. Here's what I mean. When you spend enough time in any emotional state, your brain starts to wire around it. Neural pathways strengthen, patterns become default, and eventually you might start identifying too deeply with melancholy, mistaking it for identity rather than just one emotional color in your palette. Some people begin to think of themselves as the sad one, the deep one, the brooding artist, the person who feels too much for this shallow world. And while there's truth in the fact that you do feel deeply, there's danger in making sadness your brand. Because when sadness becomes identity, joy becomes threat. Think about it. If your sense of self is built around being melancholic, being emotionally complex, being the person who understands pain, what happens when you start to feel genuinely happy? What happens when life gets lighter? For some people, that lightness feels unstable, foreign, even suspicious. They subconsciously replay sadness to feel like themselves again, because joy feels fleeting or fake. They trust sadness more than they trust happiness, because sadness has been their companion longer. It's familiar territory, known ground. When sadness becomes the only familiar emotion, peace can feel like you're doing something wrong. This is what psychologists sometimes call emotional addiction. Not that you're literally addicted to being sad, but that your brain has come to crave the familiar emotional states it knows best. And for some people, that's sadness. It's not that they love pain, it's that they trust it more than peace. There's a comfort in predictability, even when that predictability is uncomfortable. At least you know what to expect, at least you know how to navigate it. Happiness, on the other hand, that's unpredictable. It might leave, it might disappoint, it might require vulnerability and risk. Sadness asks less of you in some ways. You can sit with it, observe it, control it through music. But happiness? Happiness demands participation. And after a while, some people forget how to participate. Here's a metaphor that captures this tension. Happiness is sunlight, warm but blinding, intense. You can't stare directly at it without discomfort. It demands that you step out, be seen, engage with the world. Sadness is moonlight. Softer, familiar, safe. You can look at it for hours without pain. It lets you stay in the shadows if you want to. Both are beautiful, both are necessary. But if you've been living in moonlight for so long that sunlight feels like an assault, that's when the relationship with sad music might need examination. Not judgment, not shame, just gentle examination. Are you using sad music to process emotions and move through them? Or are you using it to maintain a state you've grown attached to? Are you listening because the music helps you heal, or because it helps you hide? These are hard questions, and there's no universal answer, but they're worth asking. If you love sad music, don't shame yourself for it. You're not broken, you're reflective. You're drawn to truth, not misery. Let's reframe this entire conversation. Your attraction to sad music isn't a problem to fix. It's not evidence of depression or dysfunction. For most people, it's actually evidence of emotional depth, of the courage to feel fully, of the wisdom to know that sadness is part of the human experience and deserves attention rather than avoidance. Sad music helps you process emotions you've been suppressing. It gives voice to feelings you haven't had time or space to acknowledge. It's like emotional hygiene. You're cleaning out the accumulated weight of unprocessed experience. And that's healthy. That's necessary. The key is that it's meant to be a tool for moving through emotion, not a place to permanently reside. Think of sad music as a rest stop, not a destination. It's where you pull over when you need to catch your breath, feel your feelings, remember what's real, but then you keep driving. The goal isn't to avoid sadness, it's to learn from it and move through it with grace. Because here's what emotional maturity actually looks like. It's not the absence of sad feelings or sad songs. It's not forcing yourself to only consume positive content and practice toxic positivity. Emotional maturity is being able to feel sadness fully, honor it, learn from it, and then let it transform into something else when it's ready. It's when you can listen to a sad song and smile gently instead of breaking. Not because you become numb or because the music doesn't affect you anymore, but because you've integrated what it's teaching you. You've processed the emotion it helps you access. You're no longer drowning in it, you're dancing with it. That's the difference. And here's something important. Your sensitivity, your emotional depth, your capacity to be moved by melancholy music, these are weaknesses. They're strengths. In a world that increasingly feels emotionally shallow, where genuine feeling gets filtered through social media metrics and performative vulnerability, your willingness to sit with real emotion is rare, valuable. Let the music remind you that your sensitivity is strength. Let it guide you through your emotional landscape, teach you about yourself, connect you to the broader human experience of joy and sorrow intertwined, but don't let it define you. Don't let it become the only language you speak. Because you contain multitudes. You're not just the sad songs you love, you're also the moments of unexpected laughter, the quiet contentment, the simple pleasures, the hope that keeps flickering even when you're certain it's gone. You're complex. You're vast. And yes, sadness is part of that vastness, an important part. But it's not the whole story. Sad music doesn't just echo pain, it redeems it. It turns heartbreak into harmony, sorrow into story. Think about what that means. Every sad song you've ever loved was born from someone's actual suffering, a real loss, a genuine wound. But they took that raw material and shaped it into something that could move others, heal others, connect others. They alchemized their pain into beauty. And when you listen, you're participating in that alchemy. You're witnessing the proof that suffering doesn't have to be meaningless, that it can be transformed, that even our darkest emotions can become art, can become connection, can become part of how we understand ourselves and each other. Maybe that's why we keep listening. Not because we love pain, but because in every broken note, there's proof that pain can still sound beautiful. There's proof that we can survive what breaks us. There's proof that we're not alone in the breaking. And maybe, somewhere between the lyrics and the silence, between the first verse and the final chord, we remember something essential, that sadness was never the opposite of joy. It was always the doorway to it. Because you can't know real happiness without having known real sorrow. You can't appreciate the light without having sat with the darkness. You can't feel the full spectrum of being alive without allowing yourself to feel all of it, the beautiful and the broken, the joyful and the aching. Sad music teaches us that. It teaches us that feeling deeply isn't something to fear or medicate or scroll past. It's what makes us human. So the next time you reach for that song that always makes you cry, the one you've listened to 100 times, the one that sees straight through you, don't judge yourself. Just listen. Let it do what it does. Let it hold you while you hold yourself. And then, when the song ends and the silence returns, step back into your life a little softer, a little more honest, a little more aware of the depth you carry. Because that depth is your gift. Even when it feels like a burden, especially them. The world needs people who feel things fully, who aren't afraid of sadness, who understand that beauty and pain aren't opposites. They're partners in the dance of being alive. Keep listening, keep feeling, keep finding the beauty inside the melancholy, because that's where the truth lives. And truth, even when it hurts, is always worth the listening.